Boys, welcome to the Minecraft UHC Trapper tier list video. Quickly before I start ranking, I want to kind of explain my thought process. So for what makes a good trapper, I have 4 categories that I'm kind of ranking people on. The first one is knowledge. You kind of have to know what traps are, how they work, different types of traps in order to be a good trapper, and that's the knowledge component, which is probably the most important out of all of them. Next, we have mechanics. Pretty much just executing trapping, because you may be able to know a lot about trapping, but if you're not able to execute what you know, then what's the point? You're not going to be able to get anybody. Pulling on time, critting out well, clutching 1v2s, 1v3s, obby trapping, all that stuff goes into mechanics. Thirdly, we have development/innovation, which is pretty much either all the different types of traps that you've made, which is basically how creative are you? Have you made a bunch of new traps? If you did, are those traps any good in terms of how effective they are at getting people? If you haven't made new traps, have you refined traps, which is probably a really huge component. Making slight improvements to crit outs, pulls, head hitters, etc. Then lastly, we have the X factor, one could call it, which is pretty much just like my opinion that helps balance out how I feel people are ranked. There's not much else to that. Maybe your PvP skill, if you can clutch a game or not, whether you're good at teams, etc. As per usual with most tier lists, this one is ranking S through F. Now, most of the people in this tier list out of the 24 that there are pretty decent. So since we're looking at the top level trappers, anything C and above is pretty much good in terms of my opinion, and that's like what I'm thinking of whenever I put someone in C or above. And if you're D or below, you're a little bit worse than, you know, the average good person who's a trapper. Also, you guys asked for this tier list, as I said in my community tab a while ago. Make sure to input your voice there for future videos and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't want to keep you. Let's go ahead and jump right into this tier list. So first up on the tier list, we have our boy HalfSkeleton. Half's been around for a little while. He's definitely taken note of what other trappers do and used that to his advantage. I feel like he knows quite a good bit about trapping in the game. However, to counter that, there isn't really too much innovation that we've seen from HalfSkeleton besides half signs, which if you don't know, those are the fancy signs you place that have that little bit of a hitbox that keeps people from eating gaps or potentially hitting you if they're cheating, that kind of thing. HalfSkeleton is the one who originated with that. So that is a pretty big advancement. And then overall mechanics for Half are pretty decent. I feel like as the months have gone on though, he's just strayed more and more from trapping, enjoys snowballing his stuff more, and that affects his trapping gameplay a little bit, but still pretty good mechanics from our boy. That being said, that's gonna round out HalfSkeleton to a solid B tier. Solid B tier trapper. Next up we have AdamCraftPC. The man, the myth, the legend, some may say. A lot of you guys might not know who this is. He's a, I guess you could say, classic high-pixel trapper. You know, you might have seen xPhl do a bunch of head hitters in a row. That's not the xPhl, it's the AdamCraft. That's what he's known for. So he doesn't really know too much else besides head hitters. He knows a couple other traps, but for lack of knowledge, Adam makes up in getting people in head hitters and obby trapping ones who don't. He's not been around for a while, but during his time, he dropped mad games with just head hitters. It's crazy. And of course, being a head hitter man, he didn't really come with like cool new traps or anything. But he has a couple variants of the head hitter layout, you know, maybe being a block further for the second head hitter, things like that. So, you know, a little bit of development. Being the case, that's going to put AdamCraft at probably a little lower of a C tier, but still a good showing, and he's gotten many a trap win. Next up, we have Saund. A lot of you guys probably don't know him, but this is a real classic who comes from the Badline community. Trapping on Badline, boys, you'd love to see it. And for the most part in Badline, in his early days, typical like everyone else, gravel traps, pressure plates, nothing fancy, but we do have him dabbling in some pretty unique stuff, mainly the mineshaft suffocation trap, and then more recently on Arctic, literally phasing through a wall to trap somebody. Fortunately, both those videos clips have been deleted, so I can't show them to you, but they're really cracked, and he is quite the innovator for his time. Along with a good bit of knowledge and decent mechanics, we're gonna have our first A tier of the day with Saund. Quite the trapper. Next up we have Cusim. Cusim's a little more older in the high pixel trapping community compared to all the new ones from now, and definitely pretty good at what he does. He knows a lot, taking stuff from other trappers, knows how to use it, which is really good. Mechanics are also a fairly strong suit, not exceptional by any means, but certainly good. However, we don't really see quite as much development in new traps or anything by him. being the case, he could still pull out good games and is pretty good. So we're going to be giving him a B tier, just below half at the moment. Next up, we have fruitberries. Probably most of you guys are here to see me rank fruit because, oh my gosh, fruitberries, Minecraft Trapper, woo. Definitely one of the older trappers, probably one of pretty much the oldest on Hypixel. And the strong suit for him is definitely creativity. He's coming up with a lot of crazy stuff, pulled off traps you never would think would work. And he's still pretty good at, PvP, obbying, and the mechanics of it. Also, his knowledge is really solid. The only real critique is that he's focused more on content, one would say, than getting the win. And that kind of shows up in backup traps, rather lack thereof, and just a few of the traps he tries don't always work out too well. Being the case though, he still pulls off pretty crazy games, and he's gonna get a B tier ranking. Next up we have HamC. Now he's quite the unique individual. HamC knows a good bit about trapping, been here for a little while, but unfortunately doesn't really always make the best decisions and is quite lazy, especially when you play teams with this guy. He doesn't want to do anything by the book, kind of just does what he wants, and is a struggle to play with and ends up costing games, whether it's building the trap wrong, not pulling on time, making some dumb play blocking you off or whatever. Ham definitely struggles. Not to mention, if it's not a header trap, he really doesn't like to build it or bait it. Being the case, he's quite the struggle bus, and he's gonna get a D tier, first one of the day. But yeah, that is where he's gonna go. Next up we got oSami. I haven't played with oSami too much or anything, but from what I've seen and heard, he's pretty solid. Definitely has made some really good traps like the village block off and a piston pusher, and also seems to know a good bit about other traps and how to use them as well. Can't speak too much on mechanics though, as I haven't really played with him a ton. But from what I can tell, he's about average on his mechanics. Can't think of anything too overly special. So he's gonna come in at a nice C tier. The next two people we have, RainbowTeletubby and Limenko. Kind of you could almost group together. First off, our boy Rainbow is an iVeggie fanboy, and that may not make sense to you, but let me just give you a perspective on how he likes to trap. If we take a nice head hitter in the side of a mountain and we put some buttons on it, we dig it down to Y11 with no sides or anything, that's basically the RainbowTeletubby way. And doing that in 2016 is one thing, but to do that in 2020, it's just F. That's just how it is. Additionally, we have Limenko. Poor soul. I kind of felt bad. RainbowTeletubby was all alone in F tier. We needed someone in F tier for, the tier list to like look good, If there's just an empty tier, that's kind of lame, but I needed somebody to join him, and we could come up with the 0.3 KD Limenko has, or telling other trappers, here's what you did wrong, here's what you should do better, when meanwhile he uploads 1-kill trapping games and replay mod with a massive fan in the background. But I can't show you those because he deleted those, unfortunately. But he just really isn't that good. And so he's going to join Rainbow in F tier. Moving on, we're going to jdegoederen. Now, there are probably not many people watching this know who he is. And he's not exactly a trapper. He's most known for being one of the best PvPers at Badline UHC. But what everyone watching this video and people on this tier list like a lot is obby trapping. And while there's no real way to prove JD was the first to do it, it is certain that he's the one who basically showed the entire community what obby trapping is and how to do it. And because he was the best for so long, and pretty much a lot of these people who are going to be on the tier list wouldn't be here on their tier without obby trapping, he's just an S tier. The inventor of obby trapping. Such a big accomplishment that you can't not put him there. And also, he can finish out games. He's one of the best PvPers, the best probably on this tier list in terms of PvP. So yeah, moving on back to Hypixel, we're here with DoomedCow, also someone who wasn't originally known for trapping, but a couple years ago decided to dabble in a little bit. And very similar to Fruit, he's come up with a lot of traps. What separates him though is that they're often more effective, whether that be getting more players per game, being more likely to get a good player so you can get a win out of it. They just seem to work more and be useful for longer. But that could be due to less of a sub count. Also though, he's pretty good at obby trapping, likes to use backups. That just separates him from the field. Knowing a lot, having good mechanics, and making a lot of innovations and new traps. Easy A tier for our boy DoomedCow. Next we have Gbilly, the man himself. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of variety to show you on his content. Doesn't record and upload too much. But just like a lot of the other people here, he's pretty good in teams. Someone I play with fair amount. And I could say that he knows quite a good bit, pretty good at mechanics, but I haven't really seen him make too many new traps or anything. So he does fall a little bit short there. Regardless, I still have to put him at a solid B tier. Next up, we have joojn. Now, I didn't even know who this guy was like a week ago, but everyone on this list so far is English speaking. I'm English speaking. What about people who don't speak English? I kind of feel bad for them. So we grabbed this guy. I don't even know what language he speaks, I won't lie. But it's not English. So representing the non-English community, we have this guy. And let me tell you, he doesn't really play too much Hypixel or servers that might be slightly difficult to trap people. but he's got some nutty traps. You go through his channel, you can see a wide variety, and they work. Especially this piston one. You literally are not going to see it coming. You're just going to have to take the L. And because of that, we're giving him an A tier. Seems to know a lot, seems to have decent mechanics, and have a lot of cool trap ideas. So congrats to you non-English speakers, you got someone to cheer on. Moving back to the English community and Badlion, we got MrSteveMan. He's a pretty old trapper, dates back several years, and like most other Badlion trappers, we have him doing sand traps, gravel traps, pressure plates, but also a couple unique ones, such as the one you're seeing on screen. Believe it or not, done before fruitberries. I can't believe it. I thought fruit invented that trap. But yeah, we see it here firsthand. Regardless, no, nothing exceptional in terms of mechanics, or innovation, or really knowledge. Well, it was average for his time. Of course, nowadays, anyone with that repertoire of traps is not going to do so hot. And that's going to leave our boy MrSteveMan down at D tier, unfortunately. Joining HamC. Next up, we got Marcus. Boy, Marcus knows a good bit about traps, and also has pretty good mechanics, can obby pretty well, knows when to do certain things, but also, like a bunch of others on this list, doesn't really innovate too much, doesn't make up any new traps, or build upon others. Regardless though, it's still definitely someone that you're going to want to play with, who can clutch up games, and that's going to put him at a C tier. Next up we have ParkerGaimBrain, relatively new trapper to the scene. Parker definitely knows a good bit when it comes to trapping. Additionally, what we got going for him is he's quite creative, like your typical fruitberries. Definitely has unique ideas that people haven't seen before. However, they aren't always the most effective, excluding the blacksmith backstab, which is definitely an S tier trap from our boy that still works. People still fall for it. How? I have no idea. Additionally, Parker does suffer a bit from mechanics and isn't the best at being able to finish out games. So that's going to put him at a C tier, joining his boys there. Next up, we got goldenz. Like a lot of the other high pixel trappers on this tier list, he knows what he's doing, understands different types of traps, what everyone else has done pretty well. Additionally, he's pretty good at mechanics, doesn't really make that many mistakes. Certainly not exceptional or anything such as Cow, but definitely is someone that you'd be happy to have on your team. In terms of innovation though, we only see a couple traps from goldenz, but there's definitely good ones, such as the backstab on top of trees, the goldenz backup ladder, or the goldenz backup ladder pull. Definitely got some effective traps he's created, which helps him get up there. Being the case, that's gonna put him at a B tier, along with his fellow brothers. After that, we have iVeggie. Everybody loves our boy iVeggie. Similar to Fruit, the vegetable man knows quite a lot about what he's doing, and also loves focusing on the content. But where he falls is both in his mechanics and innovation of traps. Well, it's got with a lot of traps. A lot of times they aren't quite the most effective. Take for example the one you're watching right now. It's a pretty intricate, cool trap, but he decided to put it in a mine shaft. So many different traps that you could use in a mine shaft, and he chose this one. Kind of weird, and it pays the price for his game. Looks great for the content, but in terms of trapping skill, kind of suffers a bit. Additionally, not using too many backups except maybe a backstab hurts him a little bit. For some context into this opinion, this screenshot here, which I did from a while ago, just kind of showcasing the average content you see on the Veggie channel. Number of kills are the numbers on the video, and then W and L is win-loss. We see 8 of these 18 videos. It doesn't even get more than 2 trap kills. Considering oftentimes, he'll make a community post, I played 8 hours today and couldn't get a game, and these are the ones he comes up with. That's why I'm gonna have to put him in a D tier. However, when paired with good trappers, Veggie definitely can excel. But alone, he is suffering on a D tier. Better than HamC though, I'll tell you. Definitely you're gonna want Veggie on the team over HamC pretty much any day. After that, we got SuperKraftPlayz. Relatively new trapper as well to Hypixel, and knows what he's doing, has good mechanics, but there's really only one SuperKraft trap that we have to discuss. And that of course is the SuperKraft pull. You know you love it, a pull on the side of a mountain. While there's debate whether iVeggie actually made this trap and not SuperKraft, it is the staple for SuperKraft, and that means a lot. And that's gonna put our boy at a B tier. Knows what he's doing pretty well. Next up we have MonsieurHardCore. Again, most of you guys probably don't know me. He's a classic Badlion, the most classic Badlion trapper. If you had seen any trapping, it probably was his. Of course, as it was on Badlion, there weren't too much variety, mostly just fall traps with sand, gravel, and pressure plates, but he was pretty good at those. Had a high trap success rate, and for his time, definitely knew a lot and had good mechanics. Because of that, it's gonna bring our boy to a C tier. His first time, he was pretty good. Next up, we have our boy xPhl. Now for Phil, he's been on the scene for a little bit. We've seen quite a lot of phases for him. Starting out similar to our boy AdamCraft, with just classic head editors, but we've seen him move on, take ideas from other trappers, and make them his own. And in terms of innovation, that's where he shines. Converting the fake ladder to an ATT, supposedly creating the Tyseer, even though it is called the Tyseer. Still a little confused there, but you know, I guess we'll take his word for it. Overall, Phil takes already used traps and improves them to be more effective and work better for longer, which is not a skill too many people have. Also, he has really good mechanics, knows when to pull, when to place blocks, when to do certain actions, is pretty good at obbing. All that being said, he's gonna join JD up on the S tier of the Trapper tier list. After that, we have our boy Pqcu. Like many of the others on the list, he knows what he's doing when it comes to trapping. Able to take other people's traps, recreate them. Also has pretty good mechanics and is able to convert trap kills. Unfortunately, not quite as much innovation as we've seen from people like Cow and Phil, but regardless, he's still going to make the A tier, just barely above a bunch of those people in B. Next up, we have IkePvP, or better known as IkeTheKingPvP. Fortunately, the background footage you're seeing isn't UHC. He's deleted all his UHC stuff. But like MonsieurHardCore, Saund, MrSteveMan, pretty good at the traps he did, which was mostly sand traps. Like I said, I can't show off these clips, but he knew what he was doing for his time. Obviously now, all the old Badline trappers can't compare to new ones, but he knew what he was doing, was pretty good at it, which is gonna get him a C tier on the tier list. And of course last, but certainly not least, myself. Now we all already know where I'm going to rank myself, so we'll go ahead and stick myself there, and here I'll just go ahead and present you to the case of why that is. To explain this, we're going to have to go all the way back to August 2015, over 5 years ago. And that's because that's when I started trapping. I'm the oldest trapper on this tier list. And even my resume from then is quite strong. For several months, I pretty much stuck to the staircase pressure plate trap over gravel and sand fall traps, because I realized that one was quite easier to reset than the other. In addition, starting in December of 2015, I consistently did backup traps every single game, which helped me to win 1v2s and 1v3s trapping, sometimes making up to 3 backup traps besides the main. Then we move into my bed bombing and TNT minecart phase. Not originals, but ones I perfected. Fast forward 6 months to mid 2016, and we get me coming up with the dig down trap before people like Fruit did on Hypixel, and doing crit outs like my sky-based staircase pressure plate trap. 2017 and 2018 are pretty dull. We don't see much of alpha in 2017, 2018, besides a couple sugarcane trap clips and whatnot. But end of 2018 and 2019, up until now, we have me coming up with the ladder pressure plate trap, the piston block off trap, the grave robbers trap, the switch route on a ladder trap, the fake ladder backstab, falling my own trap, piston push into water, double piston pull, and then advancements like 1.16 crit outs, sticky piston replacements for non-Hypixel, and fence gates being brought over from HCF to UHC traps. You can see why I think that I excel easily in innovation and knowledge compared to everyone else on the tier list. But my mechanics definitely could use some improvement. They're still good enough to rank me the top S tier spot on the tier list for today. And that's gonna round out our tier list here today. But before the video ends, there's 2 things to note. Firstly, all this is just my opinion. No hard feelings towards anyone. Hopefully pointing out some of the flaws in people helps their gameplay. And secondly, I sort of feel like I rambled on and said a bunch of the same things for a lot of people, for the simple reason that if I'm gonna go in depth into somebody why I have my opinion of their ranking, I'm not able to say that in just 30 seconds, and I'd be making like individual 5-minute videos. That being the case, if there's any type of like commentary content that you would be interested in me doing, let me know, because this is a pretty cool video. And I feel like analyzing gameplay or whatever else there may be in the commentary scene might be an interesting thing to do on this channel. So don't hesitate to comment that along with your opinions on the tier list itself. And as always, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And thanks so much for watching, guys.
She ballin'.